Join me as I travel from the west coast of Africa, here in Angola, right across to the east coast of Africa in Tanzania by train. My coast-to-coast railway adventure starts by going across Angola, then into Central Africa, and finally to the east coast at Dar es Salaam. Before departing, I had two errands on Angola's coast. First, I collected a little bottle of Atlantic Ocean water. I planned to mark the end of my journey by emptying this into the Indian Ocean. As well as collecting my Atlantic Ocean vial, I also got to meet a long-term expat in the city of Benguela, which is right next to Lobito, the train starting point. Nancy Gottlieb is an American who runs an English school in Angola. Nancy has spent most of the last 30 years living in the town of Benguela. I'm curious to know how she ended up here.
I lived in New York and Boston. I had a lot of jobs that I worked hard to get. I have a nice resume. And honestly, I felt like my soul was dying after I got into each of my jobs that I worked hard to get. And I wanted to do something with my waking hours that I actually thought was like worth doing, and helping kids learn to read, write, and do arithmetic. That's like a basically decent thing to do.
Angola experienced a lot of war, really from even prior to independence all the way until around 2002. So it's from the 1960s, in fact, till 2002. It's a very long time. And you were here most of the 1990s, right until peace finally came.
Yeah.
So what was it like to live here in wartime?
Honestly, I felt safer here day to day than I did living in New York City. But that's because during the day in Benguela, there was not war going on here. There was the results of war going on elsewhere. So there were a lot of refugees.
So in a way, you straddle two worlds, because you're from the US, you grew up there, but you've also spent so much of your life in Angola. So that's one of the wealthiest countries, and this is one of the poorest by many indexes, even if not maybe by GDP. So how would you compare the people?
Go from the United States, where the traffic light doesn't change and somebody loses their temper, or they're yelling at their kid because they put something in the wrong place. And here it's more basic, and you see people every day dealing with fundamental problems: transport, education, food, healthcare, and being resilient about it and flexible about it. And lots of things don't happen. You know, people here know they don't control a lot, which none of us do, but you kind of have seems like the background ideas you're supposed to be able to do that in the West, and then people get so emotionally unbalanced when, you know, they don't. And so I think I feel grateful that I can live here. Plus I like to dance, and most of the guys are great dancers.
The Benguela Railway was built over a 30-year period, ending in 1931. Many railway workers died of tropical illness or wild animals during the construction in inhospitable and uninhabited lands. During the Portuguese colonial period, the railway was used regularly and was actually the biggest employer in the country. The independence struggle was followed by a further 2.5 decades of war, which resulted in the destruction of the railway, until now, that is, as the route has been rehabilitated with Chinese money. Fellow traveller and road engineer Antonio Dambo confirms that following much destruction, infrastructure rebuilding is underway in Angola. A vida durante a guerra, como foi?
A vida durante a guerra foi um pouco difícil, que na qual houve muita crise, né? Houve crise de alimento, enfim. Depois, pronto, através dos campos, as pessoas cultivavam e comiam normalmente. E aí, depois o governo me apoiou, deram muita comida que vem da ONU, enfim. E depois de cessar a guerra em 2002, então pronto, aí continuou-se com as infraestruturas, na qual houve projetos de centralidades, as estradas, e praticamente a estrada começou em 2006. Essa infraestrutura começou em 2006. É isso aí. E aí correu e as obras estão indo até a data presente. O país está se reconstruindo aos poucos.
The renovated Benguela Railway and 2 other rebuilt railway lines in Angola are examples of how the country is slowly rebuilding. I wander over to the restaurant carriage, and as I watch the war-scarred city of 𝐥𝐢𝐤𝐤 pass by, I eat what will turn out to be very much the Last Supper. I was just settling down to my first night's sleep on my first train when I heard a loud hissing sound, and I thought that sounds pretty weird. I went out to have a look and there was smoke everywhere, and it was a fire extinguisher, which is what I thought. And I just came back, grabbed my stuff, barefoot, running through here. People were trying to pull the alarm, it wasn't working. Once we came to a halt, we made our way out the train. I could see that the restaurant car was on fire. The 2 fire extinguishers were no longer working. They tried to find water. It took some time, and then they got it under control. Ladies and gentlemen, this is train management. We would like to inform you that tomorrow's breakfast will be burnt toast. With no restaurant car, day 2 starts without a coffee as I approach the town of Luena, where, after a 24-hour stop, I continue east towards Congo. Every new train in Angola entails repeated registration with immigration officials, despite neither entering nor leaving the country. A legacy of the original Benguela Railway is the eucalyptus trees found along this train line. Coal was in short supply, so the Portuguese took the unusual step of using wood-burning steam locomotives and planted millions of fast-growing eucalyptus trees along the railway as a source of wood. Today, the eucalyptus wood is used for furniture production here in Angola. Nancy in Benguela draws a comparison between an advanced country like the USA and a developing nation like Angola, sociologically. When I look at the snacks on offer here on the Luena-Luau line, it's a fast reminder of how unhealthy Western diets have become. There's no processed food here. I managed to make it right across Angola by train, and then I discovered through my contact in the Congo that the trains, which are intermittent at best, is not running. So I've decided to continue into Zambia to their railway network by road, and it should be an interesting journey. The vehicle you see behind me is a 4x4 bus. So that gives you an idea of what the roads are going to be like. Following the rebuilding of the Benguela Railway, significant investment has been pledged to revitalize the existing Congo rail link to its rich source of minerals in Katanga province, and also to build a new branch railway line directly from eastern Angola into the Zambian mineral-rich copper belt, so its raw materials can be transported direct to Lobito harbour for export. Until then, this is the weak link in the west coast to east coast by rail route, and I'm taking the alternate road route through the far east of Angola. When our bus arrives at the Angolan junction town of 𝐥𝐤𝐬 at sunrise, small-scale traders unpack their goods. One of them is Louis Harvard Mukonda, who trades in what can only be described as brown gold. Each of these bags cost him $1,300.
Basically, I'm trading this natural product called 𝐥𝐤𝐤, the one I'm holding in my hands. It is the one that is used to make African polony. It looks like a cake. When it is already made, it looks like a cake. And then it is cut in smaller pieces, and then it's eatable. It could be a staple food, especially for Zambians. Zambians like too much African polony.
In his quest for the highest quality Chikanda tuber, Louis travels by train, bus and vehicle from Zambia to the rural areas of 𝐵𝐴 in central Angola.
It takes us roughly 3 to 4 days from Zambia for you to reach 𝐵𝐴, and then again 3 to 4 days for you to get back to Zambia. From the mode of transport that is used, you can determine the nature of the road. The road is bad, especially in these rain seasons. The road becomes poor. By the time you'll be reaching home, you are exhausted. It is exhausting our resources. Where there are bad road networks, the charges are always high. So basically, we are hoping for a train. If we are given a railway line, then we are home and dry. We'll do our trading nicely.
Having loaded their Chikanda cargo onto a Land Cruiser, I joined Louis and his business partner Harrison on the next phase of their trading journey to the Zambian border. This is very much the world of unregulated public transport. 28 hours and 150 kilometers later, as we approach the Zambian border, Lewis helps with the final repair.
We're able to see our own African intelligence. When a vehicle has a breakdown, we are trying to use all best possible ways to make sure that it has to start moving. Quite adventurous anyway.
I say goodbye to Lewis on the banks of the Zambezi River and enter Zambia in the town of Zambezi, where I head straight to the market. My mission? To search for African polony, the end product of the chikanda tuber that Lewis trades across the border in. How does it taste? African polony really does taste like polony, except that made from the chikanda tuber mixed with groundnuts. This is the vegetarian version. A bus ride from Zambezi town brings me up to Zambia's Copperbelt industrial heartland and back to my railway mission. From Kitwe, I'll make my way south to Kapiri-Mposhi on Zambian National Railways. Climbing aboard this weekly north-south train, I reflect on the journey that has brought me here. A more fitting name for the Benguela railway that I took across Angola is the copper route. It was to transport this precious mineral to the sea for export that the Benguela railway line was built, then, after being severely damaged during the Angolan War, was recently rebuilt with Chinese funding, and now just awaiting its Congo redevelopment and new railway branch line directly into Zambia's Copperbelt region, where I now am. The investment interest, now from the West and the USA, exists because Zambian and Congolese copper and cobalt play a crucial role in the global transition to green energy, for example wind, solar, electric vehicles and batteries. These new railway links also benefit towns along the route, small-scale traders, and of course, regular passengers. Who better to ask about Zambia's copper belt than two of its denizens, Ali and Sampa?
We say like copper belt stands for strong people, because they believe like 𝐥𝐢𝐤𝐿, those guys who go to the mines, to dig copper, like they call themselves 𝐥𝐢𝐿, or in short, street kids. But they call themselves 𝐥𝐢𝐿. So anyone who's coming from copper belt, they'll think like they are strong because they are for the streets, you know. But in actual reality, boys.
I'm curious to know what's the purpose of Ali and Sampa's journey.
We are going to Lusaka. And me, actually, it's my first time traveling with a train. Driving these boxes. Not these boxes, there are something inside.
We do woodworking.
Ali and Sampa make made-to-order furniture. But why travel all the way from Zambia's industrial belt to the capital city Lusaka to make deliveries?
These things we are delivering, where we're coming from, it's too cheap. Let's just say we like 500 kwacha. They will be like, that's too expensive, bro. And then in Lusaka, they'll be like, that's fine, that's okay. So there's a big difference between copper belt and Lusaka.
The last part of my journey will take me from central Zambia to Africa's east coast at Dar es Salaam, using the Tazara train. Just as with the Benguela line running from the west coast to Central Africa, the Tazara line running from Central Africa to the east coast of Africa was built for the purpose of exporting copper. It was known as the Uhuru line, in Swahili meaning freedom, back in the 1970s when the Chinese built the Tazara. Reason being, it provided an alternative route for the export of copper directly into independent Tanzania and Dar es Salaam, instead of that south into white-dominated Rhodesia and South Africa, making the Tazara indeed a very political decision.
Hey, I'm Ty, and I'm here with my family. We're from Zimbabwe. We're heading to Zanzibar for a special occasion, Jane's 60th birthday. We normally catch a flight, and we thought this time would be a good idea to do it a bit slower. Yeah, the views are spectacular. You're going through African bush most of the time, see very few people. If people, you see them living rurally, which is pretty amazing.
This Zimbabwean family are all busy, self-employed people. What's the key to making a success of it in Africa?
Growing up and choosing a career is one thing. In the West, you don't have such a stable economy in the developing world to always fall into, and have a government that's always going to have your back, and a health insurance that's always going to be there to support you. So, coming from a country where it's about the hustle, it's about doing what you got to do, about being entrepreneurial.
And what does it mean to be a white African?
It's a beautiful thing to be called an African, whether you're white, black, colored, Indian, Chinese, and that's it, I'm African. Growing up, you're obviously a minority, and you've got the struggles of being a minority, as anyone would, as a minority group. But at the end of the day, you feel blessed to be part of something so natural and so connected to nature, and surrounded by people that are dealing with, and yourself dealing with, struggles that are real. And in that comes humbleness and comes a sense of community.
I get off the train in the town of Kasama in northern Zambia and set out to explore the sights. On the outskirts of Kasama town, I go in search of rock art. Traipsing through the bush, I use Zambia's ancient rock art as my guide. With at least 1,700 rock paintings already discovered in a 100 square kilometer area, this is considered to be one of the densest concentrations of rock art sites in Africa. Found in rocky outcrops, the Kasama rock art consists of both geometric motifs and animal depictions. While the animals are thought to be connected to trance or trance dancing, the abstract designs can be harder to interpret. But weather divination, such as rain-making rituals, are a possibility, which is what these vertical lines probably symbolize, while these designs are considered to be related to fertility. All aboard, time to depart. Not quite. First, a railway coach connector needs to be repaired. And once we get going, as they say, mind the gap. Also traveling on the Tazara train are Ming Jung and Ho Won, two South Korean students, each traveling alone, but who have met up coincidentally on this train. The full Tazara trip from Kapirian-Poshi to Dar es Salaam is about 3 days and nights. What is that like?
It's enough for just 1 day. No more than 2 days. Yeah, very hot, and it's like a roller coaster. Very, how can I explain?
Bumpy.
Like bumpy. Yeah, and very too hot. Too hot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also to me, yes, same. I have the same thoughts, and I want to ask for the train to make some air conditioner in the train, yes, and make it a little bit more clean. But it is still nice experience looking at the landscape and going slowly to the other country. Yes.
I'm curious to know what Ming Jung and Ho Won see as being the main differences between South Korea and Africa.
The biggest one is safety.
Yes.
Yeah, because if we are drunken at late nights in South Korea, the 90% we are safe. We can get to the home easily, or just sleeping in the road. It
Yes.
might be okay, but after the sunset in Africa, we should never get out the accommodations. That's the big difference, and that's why many South Koreans being robbed and being punched in late night, because they thought it will be same in Africa, but it's totally different.
Yes, totally different.
As I pour my little bottle of Atlantic Ocean water into the Indian Ocean and reflect back on the last 22 days of travel from coast to coast, it's the toughest times now that stand out as a highlight. those 54 hours of day and night travel through eastern Angola, where 2 Zambian traders took me under their wing. Also, getting to know and interview and meet various people on all the trains has been really enriching. So, until next time, goodbye.